And then I would just mention one anecdote, David, that comes to mind, where I was doing some work with an organization that's very well known in the marketplace for being a family-friendly media company and producer of products and services that are all about being family-friendly. So the mid-level managers actually pointed out that a lot of the internal practices and the culture inside the organization was inconsistent with that message to the market about being a family-friendly company. And that was something that very much appealed to the leadership of the organization when the manager said, we are not walking the talk about what we say out in the market and what we do inside the organization. And specifically, it was about women in leadership positions, at mid-level leadership positions, were not getting promoted into the most senior levels of leadership because of a non-family friendly environment. It was more about how much time you put into the office rather than the results that you achieved. And that actually had an effect on mid-career women who were looking to start families or had started families, and they were being prevented from being promoted. That was both in practical terms, because they couldn't put as much time into the office, but also the mindset, the attitudes, those very deep-seated cultural characteristics that needed to shift. So the most senior levels of leaders recognize that, women in leadership was going to be a really important goal for the future, specifically that very specific issue. And so they started to break that down. So they did certain things that were practical and also symbolic, like opening daycare centers, in their locations where, women could, feel more supported. But it's a long-term initiative that has to not only, provide practical solutions, but there needs to be a shift in those attitudes. And that shift, really has to come from leadership. So that's just one example, David, that I saw. Did you have anything else to add to that question?
Yeah. So in that specific example, which I really like, I would have some kind of metaphor toward daycares being a Band-Aid when you should be looking at what caused the wounds in the first place, which in this scenario would be misogyny. And you would have to change the culture addressing this to not have a discrepancy between men and women or any kind of double standard there. And so I think the number one way to change any problem, as you said, is to not be silent. And if you don't have a psychologically safe space, that can be really hard. And you might have to focus on bravery and shattering that glass ceiling that we all know is prevalent in a lot of larger organizations and smaller ones, unfortunately, as well.
Yeah, and somewhat ironically, they're most prevalent in market leaders, in industry leaders. They've come from that, very male-dominated, highly competitive, highly driven, type of culture. And I like what you said, David, about calling it out for what it is, which is misogyny. And we sometimes we will we'll skirt the issue, and call it, being non-inclusive. Let's call it for what it is. Let's call it misogyny. It's racism. Let's start using terms, that people can really connect to. And, maybe they'll say, oh my God, what do you mean misogyny? What do you mean racism? Well, that's exactly what you mean. So I think changing some of that language could also help, if you do have leaders, or you want to get the attention of leaders, and you want to really take a serious look and make change, those are the things we're going after, changing.
Right, and I think it's important to address that those aren't dirty words or words that mean that somebody is implicitly, purposefully doing that, because some people might not know that they are being misogynistic or racist, etc. But you can't fix a problem that you can't see. So the first thing to do is to blatantly address the problem, and then you can start working on ways that you can hold people, if you're in a mid-level position, accountable who are above you, and make you feel like you're in a company that you want to stay in, because ultimately we all want to be in a company that we appreciate what they're doing and you feel like you're contributing to.